Welcome to the Clown World Circus, everybody, where the women are men, the left is right, and everything you thought you knew to be right is wrong as rain. So step on up to the funhouse mirror, because it's not your reflection that's inverted, it's you that's inverted. Feeling dizzy? Just turn left and puke.
Every time who I am, well, how damn, I'm a man. Six shooters in both my hands. I'm a cold-blooded brother, a real bad mother. Watch out, honey, here
Welcome back, everybody. I did that kind of bizarre intro because it really does represent the world that we live in today, where everything that we know to be good is inverted and seems to be bad in terms of our culture. So I wanted to start today off, before I get into the real news story of today, I want to start with a quote from one of the best presidents in American history, Calvin Coolidge. So he said, "We do not need more material development. We need more spiritual development. We do not need more intellectual power. We need more moral power. We do not need more knowledge. We need more character. We do not need more government. We need more culture. We do not need more law. We need more religion. We do not need more of the things that are seen. We need more of the things that are unseen. It is on that side of life that it is desirable to put the emphasis at this present time. If that side is strengthened, the other side will take care of itself. It is that side which is the foundation of all else. If the foundation be firm, the superstructure will stand." And I think that is a very incredible quote, and it goes back to the idea of the founding fathers, that in order to have self-governance, you must have a moral and virtuous people. And we have lost that. America culturally has entirely lost its way. And nowhere can we see that more than the Pacific Northwest, in places like Portland, or, as this story shows, Seattle. So Seattle pays ex-pimp $150,000 to offer alternatives to policing. There is absolutely nothing right about this. You know, I could go through a list of everything that's wrong about this, but the list of what's right about it is much shorter and much more concise. And I'm done. Nothing is right about this. So, Seattle now has on its payroll a convicted pimp who once vowed to go to war with the city, a $150,000 street czar whose mission is to come up with alternatives to policing. So now, you can be a criminal and get paid more money than anybody in the working class to, I don't know. I don't know what a street czar does. So Andre Taylor, who appeared in the documentary film American Pimp, is about his life as Gorgeous Dre, is getting $12,500 per month for a year, along with an office in Seattle's Municipal Tower, according to the contract published by Publicola. There's that old saying, crime pays until it doesn't. Well, with our culture and with our society, especially in these far left towns, the the crime continues to pay. It just keeps paying. It keeps getting rewarded by their culture, and it is utterly, utterly disgusting. So it comes just a year after his organization, not this time, was paid $100,000 to sponsor a speaker series that was called Conversations with the Streets. Now, remember, this guy once threatened to go to war with the city. And now here he is taking $150,000 from the city and working for the city. It goes to show that people on the left are not people of any convictions. They have no true beliefs outside of power and self-aggrandizement. Power and the money that comes with it. So, and there's going to be a little bit more on that later in this article that kind of shows who this guy really is. And so Taylor led one of the first rallies in Seattle after the police custody death of George Floyd. So he is one of the organizers of all of the disruption in Seattle, and he was actually one of the people that started the whole CHOP or CHAZ or whatever you want to call it, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So not only did he found this autonomous zone that tried to break away from America, wrecked and destroyed the city, caused all kinds of trouble, got multiple people killed. What he gets for his trouble is a $150,000 paycheck and a cushy office in a government office. And I got to imagine that his job is not going to be filled with a lot of sitting at the desk, poring over studies and paperwork. I don't think there's going to be anything too academic about it. In fact, I think he is probably bilking the city of Seattle for $150,000 for services rendered that basically involve him going and agitating more of this left-wing communism with people on the streets. That's just my guess, but I think he's probably getting paid to be an agitator. Again, the clown world is an utter inversion of everything we know to be good and pure. Andre Taylor, whose brother Che, of course his brother's name was Che. Oh, God. Andre Taylor, whose brother Che Taylor was killed by police in 2016, yells as he leads others to a vigil outside where a pregnant mother was shot and killed by the police. What is he wearing, too? It's like a smock. He was later accused of... Here we go. He was later accused of trying to get millions from the city for militants who set up the controversial police-free Capitol Hill occupied protest zone, the Seattle Times said. So, not only did he threaten to go to war with the city, and then he helped create this autonomous zone, he then tried to extort the city in order to get it to go away. And for his trouble, $150,000, a cushy office, and a job where he likely just goes out on the streets and pushes more of his left-wing, communist, Marxist, whatever you want to call it, agenda. He says, don't just leave with something, he told activists. Oh, God, this New York Post thing is getting annoying, that little thing coming down. He says, don't just leave with something, he told activists in a meeting caught in a recording, telling them to demand $2 million to exit the site of much of the city's worst violence this year, the report said. They ignored his advice, the paper said, with one saying that the money grab felt off. Yeah, I wonder why. Remember how I said there are two kinds of leftists? There are opportunists and there are useful idiots? Well, this is one of the opportunists. This is one of the opportunists, and he is using these useful idiots to pad his pockets and get himself a major payday at taxpayers' expense. If you live in Seattle, you should feel defrauded right now. Some of those militants then accused him of betraying them too when he appeared at a press conference with the mayor to tell them to shut down CHOP the same day he was given a six-figure contract, the paper said. Of course he did. Because every single time you have some sort of Marxist left-wing insurgency, the people who feel like they're the revolutionaries always get betrayed by the people they think are leading them. I mean, they want to see a real betrayal. Wait till the Marxist revolution actually takes hold in America and they end up getting lined up against a wall. And, AK-47 down. But yeah, this is so funny because it is just a total microcosm of how every left-wing Marxist insurgency in the history of the world has operated. This is a microcosm of all of that. Of course they felt betrayed, because anybody who leads a Marxist revolution is going to betray you when it works out for them. Because Marxism is about power. That's all it's about. It's just about power. And power means you have to step on other people to get it, to become above them. So anybody who is pushing a leftist Marxist insurgency, you should just be sitting there waiting for the knife in your back. The new street czar justified the contract to Como News as payment for his particular genius in a particular area, saying he can talk to gang members pimps and prostitutes who won't sit down with anybody else. I've got a couple comments to make, but I think he says something in just a minute that's going to even further. It's going to be a better time to bring the point home. But he's a particular genius. Way to be humble there. But of course, what do you expect from a pimp? You know, if you operate as a pimp, you are essentially a sex slaver. I mean, I don't know much about the world of pimps, but I don't think those women get too much of that money. I think essentially all the money goes to the pimp, and then the pimp just provides basically slave-like living conditions for them. So he says, black people as a whole have not been in a place to be compensated for their genius or their work for a very, very long time. That's one of the most asinine statements I've ever heard. And you could also get a complete opposite perspective from another black self-proclaimed genius in Kanye West. Although I think Kanye West actually has more of the bona fides to prove he probably is a genius. He's become a billionaire, he's become a pop culture icon, and he has learned to... Also, there is a certain genius in the bravery of standing up to the institutions that tell you can't do that, which is what Kanye has done. Apparently, Kanye was told, we will ruin your career, we will ruin your life, and it's now to the point where he has vowed not to make music unless he is released from his contracts. So he's done making music until he is able to speak his mind freely. But I think he was threatened that I think he was always more of a conservative, and he was told, do not speak out about this. I mean, you remember, his very first album, he had a song called Jesus Walks. I think Kanye has always been on the right. And we are just now finding out about that. But we're hearing some of the statements that he make that shows that he has a true understanding of what conservative values and American values actually are. For all of his kind of crazy eccentricities, he does show that he understands a lot of things. And I think a lot of his eccentricities actually came from the fact that he was living a suppressed life. You know, or some of his most bizarre eccentricities. You know, there's nothing wrong with being eccentric. I'm a little eccentric myself, if you get to know me. You know, in real life, I'm a little bit of an oddball myself, and I'm certainly no perfect man. You know, it's easy to call people hypocrites for not living up to the standards. But if you set standards that you can always live up to, then you're probably not aiming high enough. But it's the people like this pimp here who, you know, what's his name? Andre Taylor, who we're going to see in just a minute, scrolling down. Well, actually, we'll get to that in just a second. But he shows no remorse, or he doesn't think that what he did was wrong. So, not too many people can go to gangbangers in their territory, then go talk to the government in their territory, Taylor told the Seattle Times. No, not too many people can. But you know what you want to know what most of the ones who can are called? Confidential informants. This guy, I think, is essentially glossing over the fact that he's becoming a glorified snitch. Because you know, a lot of the people that he goes and talks to, how are they going to trust him to then go back and talk to the government? That doesn't, him being a former pimp doesn't negate that long-time standoffish nature between the criminal element and the government. So I think this guy is defrauding the government, and then potentially, I don't know if he's going to be ratting people out. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but he could very easily find himself in a situation where a lot of these people that go to talk to, he ends up getting them arrested. Of course, maybe not in Seattle because they're looking to defund the police there. So it's just truly, truly bizarre. But yeah, not too many people can go talk to gangbangers in their territory and then go talk to the government in theirs. Yeah, those who can are called snitches. So we'll see how this ends up playing out for Taylor, because he might actually be putting himself in more danger than he realizes. So Taylor first found notoriety in Las Vegas, where he was sentenced in 2000 to more than 5 years in prison, serving little more than a year, the Seattle Times previously noted. And here is one of the keys. Some of the girls he pimped were underage, according to court reports in the Las Vegas Sun. So, for all of the talk, for all of the vigor against child trafficking that is in our culture right now, Seattle turns around and hires a child sex slaver to be on their payroll, lucratively, giving him an office and trusting him, giving the public's trust to him. Again, clown world. Everything is an inversion. So he goes, I was from the streets. I came out of the deep darkness, he said in a YouTube video early this month, bragging how he had children with some of the women who were with me. You know, it's like, who was that NBA player? Was it, I don't know if it was Ron Artest or who it was that had like 10 different children with 9 different women or something. And that's not something to brag about. You know, how do you think those children are living their lives? Being born out of a situation where their mother was a sex slave and their daddy was his slaver. Or her slaver. He doesn't seem to reflect on that one bit. He seems to, it's almost like he's using the children as a prop to make a point that I'm not even sure what point he's making. So he said here, and this goes to show how he is completely unrepentant on the life he used to live. We decided we were going to be in this subculture, like the mafia, whether you like it or not, he said of his life. We knew you considered us the waste of the world from the beginning. We didn't care what you thought about us, just like I don't care what you think about me now. Completely unrepentant for pimping out underage girls. And it's not a subculture. It's a sad living condition. These women are often raped, assaulted, abused. I mean, the entire subculture that he's talking about is abuse. So he has no problem with it whatsoever. Look at him. I mean, that is the face of a man right there who is trying to pimp out the city now. So he came to Seattle in 2016 after his brother Che Taylor died in a police shooting, saying he was there to go to war, the Seattle Times noted. But how quickly he sells out his war when the city he was trying to go to war with ends up writing him a $150,000 check and giving him a voice of prominence. I guarantee you he's going to parlay this into millions. Because our culture now rewards the dregs of society. As street czar, his contract tasks him to provide recommendations to the city on de-escalation, community management, and alternatives to policing. Again, I don't think that's going to be a very academic approach that he's going to take to it. I think he is just going to... He's basically getting paid $150,000 for his opinions. That's my best guess. I can't verify that. I don't know what the day-to-day of his job entails, but I can't imagine that it's anything too intellectually strenuous. Mayor Ginny Durkin's spokesperson Kelsey Nyland told the Seattle Times the contract was offered because of an existing work relationship. Existing work relationship. They already gave his organization $100,000, and now he's getting $150,000 more. Look, and I understand that people should be able to outgrow their pasts. That is totally acceptable. But when you don't actually have any kind of moral repentance for your past, when you're instead living on it and thriving on it, that's kind of gross. Especially when it has to do with the abuse of women and underage girls, children. Now, I mean, I can understand, I've got a little bit of an outlaw spirit in me. So I can understand, like if you did little things and you kind of like, oh, back in my day, we raised hell. And, you have fun telling the stories and you're like, oh, well, I was young and dumb, that kind of thing. This is not that. This is not that. So Taylor's group was chosen because of its lived experience with the criminal legal system and their history of successful advocacy and activism on issues of policing and dismantling systemic racism. So he was chosen because he's a criminal. He's being rewarded for that. They're telling us that. They just use these euphemisms. His lived experience with the criminal legal system. Basically, because he's been a criminal. That's what that means. And, I got no problem with, somebody sold weed or something like that. No, who cares? Who cares? Some kind of outlaw stuff where you're making money and that kind, but not hurting people. But this is, I don't like seeing this person rewarded for this. Not one bit. Nyland and systemic racism. That basically means he's a Marxist. He's a Marxist. Noting that the city is spending millions this year in similar contracts with various groups. The Marxists are opportunists, and they are just going to bleed the taxpayers of Seattle dry for this. And there's another story that I just wanted to touch on, just to end this out. This is actually a story from a few weeks ago, and I was going to do a video on it, but I ended up, for some reason or another, I didn't get to it. And this is from Breitbart. The UN chooses teen prostitution advocate for top human rights post. I think it's time we leave the UN and burn and just topple that building in New York to the ground. It's right across the street from Trump Tower, so maybe they just implode it and Donald Trump builds an annex with a little walkway. We can have two Trump Towers with a little walkway, between them. I think that's a good idea. So the UN has tapped a former abortionist and advocate for teen prostitution to its top post of expert on health and human rights. According to a report at international human rights watchdog organization CFAM, South African Dr. Thalang Mofokeng has risen quickly at the UN from sexual health and rights advocate to the top position of special rapporteur on the side of, or on the right to health, a role that will give her a global platform to urge the decriminalization of the sex trade. And so last year, Mofokeng, author of Dr. T, A Guide to Sexual Health and Pleasure, and host of television show Sex Talk with Dr. T, created a firestorm following following the publication of her article in Teen Vogue that has encouraged teen girls to consider sex work. Now, Teen Vogue has essentially become they've posted some very, very disgusting stories in there. And they are one of the worst when it comes to Marxism. And also, there was one that was an article for teenage girls about anal sex and how to do it. Absolutely disgusting. So, defund the media. Defund the media. But she was actually encouraging teen girls to consider sex work. This is the inversion. This is everything that we know to be disgusting is good to these people and laudable. I am a doctor and expert on sexual health, but when you think about it, why aren't I a sex worker? And in ways, aren't we all? Mofokeng asked in her article, why sex work is real work. No, we aren't. See, this is the moral the moral relativism of the left, where nothing you can find ways to rationalize anything, and that's what they do. They just use these kind of euphemisms and this moral relativism to rationalize things that we as a culture have always looked down upon, and for good reason, because it is morally reprehensible. Suggesting teens go into sex work. So the idea of purchasing, I'm not even going to go into all this, but okay, yeah, I'm gonna go read this part right here. In her Teen Vogue article, Mofokeng criticized the United States for legislation that makes it harder for sex workers to advertise online. That's because we took down those because they were human trafficking websites. The amount of human trafficking on those online advertisement sites is It's mind-numbing. It's mind-numbing. Anti-human trafficking organizations denounce Mofo King's call for the normalization of prostitution as merely another occupation. DJ Pujols, founder of Open Gate International and co-founder of Strikeout Slavery, said, "The idea that legalizing or decriminalizing commercial sex work would reduce its harm is a persistent myth. Many claim if the sex trade were legal, regulated, and treated like any other profession, it would be safer. But research suggests otherwise. Countries that have legalized or decriminalized commercial sex often experience a surge in human trafficking, pimping, and other related crimes." Yes, it is an open door to abuse. And there was a time when I was a far more libertarian, when I thought that prostitution should be legalized. But of course, I didn't really think through everything, or even have any of the statistics or the research to actually realize that legalizing human trafficking legalizing the sex industry work actually does create human trafficking nightmares. And if you're able to do it, if you're able to legally perform sex work, you're going to get criminal elements that then start kidnapping women and then start advertising them online, because they can do that legally, but they can't necessarily trace back the illegality of the kidnapping and the trafficking to the advertisements that are now legal online. So I just wanted to point this out, because I mean, our culture is entirely degraded. And why is it that every time you see like a sex show or something like that, it's always with a woman who is absolutely not sexually attractive? But yeah, so the world's going to pot, back to the Calvin Coolidge quote. This is what we need. This is what we need. And we need to undo best we can modernity, and just modernity in general at this point. So anyways, guys, that's the video. Please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button, like this video, share it with your friends, let people know what's going on, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell, because we all know it's voices like mine that are first to be taken out back and old yellered by the folks at Big Tech. Also, speaking of Big Tech, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. I'm actually also on Minds and Pilled.net now too, also at Ram Thorburn. And also, because YouTube is going to be clamping down significantly on conservative commentators like myself, don't forget to follow me on BitChute and Rumble as well, other video hosting sites. Also, if you would like to contribute to the channel, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.